Ladies and gentlemen, Marky Ramone.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So how you doing? You all right?
Yeah, fine. Last time I saw my doctor, yeah.
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 Now, do you you didn't wear a leather jacket? Do you?
No, I have my other coat. It's too cold.
That's because it's wintertime.
Yeah, too cold.
Right.
Definitely.
Right. So, all right, I'm gonna we'll go all the way back to the beginning. But first, I wanted to ask you a couple of things. One, when in the last page of the book,
Yes.
it says that you recently learned that both the Pope and Barack Obama are Ramones fans.
Who knew?
Yeah.
Barack Obama in the library has Road to Ruin and Rocket to Russia in there. And the Pope came from Argentina. And the Ramones would go there in late 80s, early 90s, and he wasn't the Pope yet. But he knew about us, heard about us, and he told a friend of ours that, the next time I come by there, that he would say hello. How you doing,
Really?
The Pope.
Really? Pope Francis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's good. He's better than a lot of the other popes that we had.
He's the cool Pope. He's also a Patti Smith fan, I think.
Probably.
Yeah. I believe Patti Smith has played the Vatican a couple times.
Okay, well, yeah, we played the Vatican.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, and
everybody played the Vatican.
Right. As far as President Obama, I was watching the news before I came here, and I saw that he landed in Philadelphia for this Democratic
fundraiser
hubbub tonight.
Yeah.
Okay. So, are you here, Barack? Barack, are you here?
Oh, I wish he was.
Is he hiding out in the back?
I don't know.
All right. So let's talk about punk rock blitzkrieg. My life as a Ramone, right here.
Yes.
When did you decide to do a book, and why?
5 years ago, I read all the books already, and in a lot of the books that I did read, there were a lot of exaggerations, and I just wanted to quell them, stop them, and write my own book. 15 years in the band and 1,700 shows. So I felt I took out my composition notebooks, all my videotapes that I've had. I have an extensive library of videotapes.
And you did that from the very beginning, or
no? Well, yeah, joining the band.
Yeah,
as the black and white Fleck books, the composition notebooks she used to go to school with.
Right.
So my memory's very good. So in this book, I just write about everyone's personality, mine included, what it was like growing up in Brooklyn, New York, and then CBGBs and playing with Wayne County. Richard Hell and the Voidoids, the Ramones. It's not just about the Ramones.
Right.
The making of rock and roll high school, working with Phil Spector. And one of the rumors I wanted to stop in the books that I did read was that Phil never pointed a gun at us in the studio.
About the gun. So what is, and that rumor, that story is...
And I hate to burst anyone's bubble who thinks that and loves that story, but the guy had guns on him, but he never pointed them at us. It's a different story.
Right.
When you point the gun at somebody, you better use it. Or this might go off accidentally. Then he won't have a band to produce. You know what I mean?
Right. Now, the story is that he pointed the gun at Leonard Cohen. Is that right?
Yeah, he did, and he shot a gun up in the ceiling with John Lennon.
With John Lennon.
But he didn't shoot him.
Right. But somebody
else did.
Yeah. Right. Oh.
Yeah, that sucks.
Right. It totally sucked.
Definitely.
But so in the book, there's you tell the story of that, and he pulls a gun out, and I guess Johnny and Dee Dee get very spooked by that.
No, what happened is he had guns in holsters, and he had a license to carry. So Phil was a little guy. He was about 5'5". So they were heavy on his shoulder, and he had one here. I'd take him out, put him on the side of the console, the recording console. So that's probably what intimidated them. I mean, anybody would probably be intimidated.
But you weren't intimidated?
No.
Why?
Because I've seen a lot of that in Brooklyn. But the thing is that, the rumor is that the gun was pointed at Johnny, and it wasn't. So there were the four Ramones at that point. I kind of just joined the group in 78, 79.
Right.
And it was
Right,
us,
you were not long in the group at that point, really. I mean, you've been in for a few years at that point, I guess.
about 2 years.
Right.
And you know, it was me, Johnny, Joey, and Dean in studio, Phil, and his engineer. That was it. Mm-hmm. So you know, he was very protective of how his production, his work ethic was. You know, I mean, was because he's away now. You know, but you know, that's the way he worked. He worked very slow. The Ramones worked very fast. We were very hyper people.
Right.
And
This
Phil,
is the end of the century.
this is
album.
end of the century, which took 5 to 6 months to make. You know, but
Which is, right, very different than your normal
different.
style.
A Ramones album would take 3 weeks. So,
Right.
you know, it had a lot to do with, again, the work ethic of Phil compared to how we were used to making an album.
Right, there are stories in there about, I guess it's on, do you remember Rock and Roll Radio, that song? Where Johnny is playing this chord.
That's Rock and Roll High School.
Rock and Roll
again.
High School, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Johnny thought Phil was torturing him, and he wasn't. John had a Mosrite guitar, so in order to get that sustain in the guitar to make it, you know, bleed through the tape to keep it going, he should have used the Les Paul, which was available to him there in the studio, but he didn't. So it took about 45, 50 times to do that one chord over and over again. And Phil, again, was looking for a certain sound, and he got it after that many tries. But John thought he was just doing it to be obnoxious to him.
Right, he was, Phil was going for this sort of sound like the Hard Day's Night first chord.
Well, yeah,
kind of,
that
something magical in that first
yeah,
chord.
and he got it after a while. You know, you're in the studio, you work, it takes time. You know what I mean?
Right, right. And now you were great pals with Phil for a while.
Still
And
am.
drinking buddies with Pat.
Still am, yeah. But he liked Manischewitz.
Right. Right, he's always like Dixie cups and Manischewitz.
Dixie cups
That's
and
what it was, right?
Manischewitz. So Phil comes to my hotel room with the bottle and the Manischewitz. I go, Phil, you gotta put that down. It's, you know, it's good for the holidays, you know.
Right.
So we walked over to the liquor store and we got some nice Italian red wine, you know, and he stuck with it, you know.
He did. So you upgraded his taste a little bit.
Well, yeah, I can understand that, you know, table wines during holidays, you know, they're part of the whole thing, you know.
Right. By the way, I just wanted to ask you about this. Did you see? You must have seen the punk exhibit at the museum, at the Metropolitan Museum of Art.
Yeah, I was there.
The fashion
Yeah.
thing. What did you make of that?
Well, it's nice that it was presented that way, you know, and all the videos and the costumes and designers. I liked it a lot. It's nice that this genre is acknowledged, you know, like that.
It had the facsimile of the CBGB's bathroom. And,
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Did it have a door in the bathroom there?
There was no door in the
Oh,
bathroom.
there was definitely no door.
Yeah. I mean, you probably spent some meaningful time in that bathroom.
Yeah, but I didn't like being looked at when I was taking a leak. You know what I mean?
Right. All right. So let's go back before you were Marky Ramone.
Yes, yeah.
And you were Mark Bell.
Yeah.
And as you said, you grew up in. I mean, the rest of the Ramones grew up in Flushing,
Yeah.
Queens.
Borough. That's the borough, New York, Queens. Yeah.
Right. But you were in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
So, and it's a really interesting part of the book because you had quite a sort of colorful and history with a lot of really interesting bands, a lot of interesting characters in those early years.
Teenage years.
Teenage years, right.
Still in high school.
Right. So I want to
Well,
ask.
when I went.
Rock and roll high school, as it were. Yeah. So I wanted to ask you about some of those characters and some of those bands early on. One is this guy, Velvet Turner, who I've never heard about. So who was he?
Well, he was a friend of Jimi Hendrix's, and he was about 3 years older than I was. But he was a decent guitar player, really was influenced by Jimmy. So one day he says to me, "You want to meet Jimi Hendrix?" I go, yeah, sure, right, yeah. So I didn't believe him, you know.
How old are you at this time?
16. So the next thing I know, I'm with him. He's authoritative figure. You can't go into a club unless somebody vouches for you who's over age. And I wasn't allowed to drink at that time. So I walk into the club, and there's Jimi Hendrix and Jim Morrison and Buddy Miles. What they were doing is they were doing the Phil Maurice New Year's Eve show called The Band of Gypsies.
Right. This is Buddy Miles is the drummer in the band.
Yeah, he switched to him besides Mitch Mitchell, who was his regular drummer, but he wanted Buddy for this New Year's Eve show. So I'm hanging out with them, and they're drinking, having a great time. And here, I couldn't say a word to them because I was in awe, and I didn't have a cell phone, unfortunately. Yeah. You know, but it would have been a really nice selfie, I'll tell you. But you know,
what happened when you went back to school and told everybody?
Oh, they didn't believe me. Yeah, you're full of shit. You know, all that stuff. But you know, that was the first time I ever was that close to somebody, you know, of that musical stature.
Did that give you a little taste, a little hunger there?
No, I had to finish high school.
Right.
I had a band. My first band, Dust, was one of the first heavy metal bands in America. But I had to get the diploma on the wall because of my parents, and you know, I don't blame them. But what I did was I rehearsed for 10 months, didn't go to school at all, went to night school and summer school, and I graduated 3 years of high school in 6 months.
Really?
Yeah, with a general diploma.
Right, right.
So that's all I wanted was a piece of paper. You know.
So Dust were an early metal band.
Oh yeah.
And the playing was really kind of sophisticated and technical, really.
Very technical.
In some ways, yeah.
Yeah, I was always influenced a lot by jazz drummers. And, well, Ringo was my first influence, but I really liked Buddy Rich. I liked Max Roach. I liked guys like Ginger Baker. All these great, Joe Morello from Dave Brubeck, Take 5 album. And along that, I liked rock drummers, of course, Mitch Mitchell, John Bonham, Keith Moon, and all these other guys. And I just, you know, used all these influences.
Right. But so in Dust,
yeah, that's what all that went into.
It went into Dust.
Yeah.
You played a lot in that band.
Yeah,
sort of,
yeah, a lot of different time changes and accents and you know, different the triplets, quadruples. Well, this is technical jargon.
Yeah, that's all right.
You know, drum jargon.
Yeah, yeah, for the drum geeks in the
you know
house.
what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. And Lester Bangs was a big fan of Dust.
Yeah, he's a great guy, Lester.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
We were very grateful to have been interviewed by him in Cream magazine when we just started out as young teenagers.
Right.
You know, it was really because he was really up and coming.
Right. But so from Dust, you went to a band called Estes?
Yeah.
Is that how I pronounce that?
Yeah, Andrew Oldham from the Rolling Stones, producer of that band, wanted me to drum on that album. So because Andrew was involved, I said, yeah, okay. He did Satisfaction. He did Get Off of My Cloud, Mother's Little Helper.
Under My Thumb.
Under My Thumb. And it was great to hang out with him, you know. But it was a band from Missouri. They were a hard rock band, but then they wanted me to move to Missouri. And I'm from Brooklyn, New York, and it just couldn't happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, you know, and you know, so I had to leave. And they were great. They were great singers, great players. I just couldn't make that move, you know.
Right, right. And before you got into the really what becomes the punk scene or the precursor of the punk scene, there's one other record that I felt was amazingly cool you played on, which was a record by Johnny Shines.
Yeah, he was a Mississippi Delta blues player, and he played with Robert Johnson, who was an acoustic blues black guitar player.
Right, he actually was like the one guy who he like ran with Robert Johnson in a way.
Yeah. So, through a friend through Columbia Records that Estes was on, said they want to use this guy. So I went to the studio and I played with them. You know, it was a joy. It was a joy to play blues. You know, because I really love blues.
Right,
you know?
but and for that again, in each of those cases, you have to really sort of alter your style in order to fit the song.
You have to adapt.
Right.
Yeah, you have to adapt. Blues is 6/8 really, and 3/4 time changes. You know, so that was pretty, and usually a 4/4 shuffle.
Right.
So that was pretty easy.
Right. So the two. after that, the two key pre-Ramones punkish bands you play with are first, I guess, Wayne County.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now tell the people about Wayne County if they don't know about Wayne County. And Jane County, right?
Yeah. Two different people. Anyway, he was, and you know, I don't care who anybody is, you know, sexually. That's their own business, you know, their own preference. But he was a transvestite. And in 1974, 75, a lot of people weren't coming out of the closet yet. So we would play clubs locally. We did one club, though, in Jersey, which was run by the mob. So we had two different 8x10 photos that we would send out. One with Jane, you know, all decked out in the stockings and the heels and all, and the bra and everything, the makeup. And, you know, the band members looking like the New York Dolls. The other photo would be just natural. Normal.
Is that right? Is that right?
Yeah, so our tour manager sent the normal photo to this club. So when we get there and we're ready to go on stage, you know, he's all decked out. So we were only allowed to do 4 songs. So the guy said, "Get the hell out of here," you know.
Right.
Because he kicked the shit out of my tour manager, and we were thrown off the stage, and that was it. That was one of the reasons why that happened, because of his outrageousness. But I brought the tape of the songs to my friend Kenny Kerner. My guitar player went on to produce the first 2 Kiss albums. And I wanted to see what he could do with this guy, Wayne Jane County. He said, you know, the music's great. I love his southern drawl, but the outrageousness won't go over in Middle America. And
Right. Wayne County pushed it a little further than the New York Dolls did.
Oh,
right.
Definitely.
Right.
Definitely did.
The Dolls, who you nearly had a gig with as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Billy died, their first drummer in London, and they asked me and Jerry Nolan. Well, me and Johnny Thunders had the same birthday. We all knew each other. So we went down to the audition, me and Jerry, and here I am playing like Keith Moon, doing all these drum fills, showing off, and thinking that, you know, I'm going to impress them with all of these technical drum fills, which I didn't. Jerry just played it straight, and he got the job, and you know, more power to him.
Right.
Know?
Right. So you then went from there. The next gig was Richard Hell.
Richard Hell and the Voidoids.
Right.
We did the Blank Generation album for Sire Records, the same company as the Ramones, and Talking Heads, and Blondie, and the Pretenders. And then we toured with the Clash in England. Richard developed a drug problem, and he couldn't really cop in England. We did a 5-week tour of England. So when you're hooked on some and it's hard to get some, you can get fucked up, you know, physically. You get, you know, shakes or chills. So he was happy when the tour was over because he was dope sick, you know. And unfortunately, you know, it got to him.
Right.
He didn't seek help before it got to that point where he was addicted. So he didn't want to tour anymore. But the Clash tour was great. I got to know the Clash guys and everything. They really love American Western culture, you know. So we got back.
That's a great part of the book.
Yeah, the Clash tour. And he didn't want to tour, and that's when Tommy, my buddy Tommy, first Ramones drummer, didn't want to play anymore. He wanted to produce. So I said to Dee Dee at the CBGB bars where he confronted me about it, and I said, well, let's arrange a rehearsal. So we got, I did I Don't Care, Sheena Was a Punk Rock, and Rockaway Beach. And Blitzkrieg Bop, I think it was. And then it worked out fine. Then I heard it from John and Joey, and that was it. They gave me 40 songs to do in 2 weeks. The live set.
Because there were 3 Ramones albums out at that time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they gave me their live set and Road to Ruin. The first song I recorded with them was I Want to Be Sedated. So, I mean, you know, you're sitting there with your drum pads, headphones, and a boombox. I didn't play in a drum set. It's at that point, that's all I could really do, is have a drum pad. So that's how I learned Road to Ruin and the Ramones live set at that point.
When you saw them before you were in the band,
Yeah, we all knew each other.
yeah, but like, what did you think? Were you a fan right away?
I never heard anything like it. It was like a wall of sound. But you know, when I saw them, they weren't fully developed yet. They were still honing their skills at CBGB's. But every time I did see them, they learned. They got better and better. It's like, you know, when you see Kiss, early photos of Kiss with their makeup, eventually they developed it better, you know. But with the Ramones, there was arguments on the stage. The set was 20 minutes long. You know, they were learning. You know, besides just playing in a rehearsal studio. So
what did you bring to it at first? Like, in which way did you push them?
Well, I tuned my snare drum tighter. I'm not taking away from Tommy at all. And I just deepened the tone of the toms more and just made it a little heavier. That's all.
Right. And how about, so did you bring more power to the band, do you think?
Well,
I think you sped up. Didn't you speed up I Want to Be Sedated a little bit?
Well, the demo was very slow. Maybe just to make it easier for me to understand. But I felt it should have been speeded up a little, which was the obvious choice. Looking back at the third album, Rocket to Russia, there's a demo, 2 or 3 demos on it, I Don't Care, and some other songs. I Don't Care is so slow that I could see why they speeded it up for the album version, the real version. Right.
So, all right, so tell me about the band exists when you come in, and they have all their habits, all their personalities, and you enter into that world. So, like, tell me about that. Tell me about bring us into the van, the Ramones van, what that was like.
Sure, you want to come into it? Okay.
I think we do.
Well, it was.
How did it smell?
It was a nut house. But, you know, I mean, is that the PC term these days or what? I don't know what is anymore. You know?
Marky Ramone can say that.
So anyway, whatever it was, we had a trusty 15-passenger van. We all had our assigned seats. So you get to know people very well for 15 years in a van, you know. So, you know, I got to know Joey, Dee Dee, Johnny, the driver, Monty. And they were completely unique individuals.
So let's start with Johnny.
Well, Johnny had a good business acumen. He definitely tried his best to keep me, Joey, and Dee Dee in some kind of professional situation. Meaning, show up on time. Let's rehearse. Let's do this. Let's do that. And a guy like that had to be there. You know. Joey was a very quiet, introverted guy, but a great songwriter, great singer. And when he walked on the stage, he commanded it. You know, that was his space, and there'll never be another one like Joey. And Dee Dee was a whirlwind hurricane. You know, he was an extreme extrovert. You could be standing here next to him, and there's 10 people around you, and you can blurt out the weirdest thing, and you don't know what it's going to be. So you either got to laugh or you just got to like walk away a little bit, you know?
Right.
Because you never know what the repercussions could be, you know?
So, and Johnny had his politics, and Joey had his obsessive-compulsive disorder.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, that's known already.
Right.
Johnny was, you know, it's his choice, a right-wing conservative. And Joey was a Democratic liberal. I'm a Democrat. And he had OCD, which we didn't know what it was then. And it's in the Brothers book, but he would have to tap something, then come back and tap it again. But they thought that he was doing it just to annoy them, which he wasn't. It's a sickness.
Right.
So one day we land from Heathrow Airport, which is from London to Kennedy. So the tour manager takes us back to New York. But before we got into the van, Joey tapped the sidewalk at the airport. We go all the way to New York, and then he tells Monty Melnick, our tour manager, we have to go back to the airport and touch the same curb. And he had to do it. So that's how intense that was.
Right.
But eventually they found, I guess a decade later, ways to curb that, that.
But he didn't. Did he ever get that treatment so he got better?
Yeah, he was taking Prozac for a while, and he was doing okay. But then he stopped. He didn't want to do it.
Right. But you talk in the early years, especially when the Ramones are traveling. One of the things I found fascinating in the tour the routes and is that you would drive to Boston and drive back to New York, and then drive to Boston again the next night.
Yeah.
Rather than stay in hotels.
Right. We kept the money in our pocket. Yeah.
And did everybody do well as a result of that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't believe in that rock star stuff with the tour bus and hiring a tour bus driver, and when you're in a van for that long, you need your own space. So we would do a show, and then we would go to like a Motel 8, 6, get up the next day and travel. They were only like $29 back then,
Right.
So we definitely needed our space. So it was good to have the van, and it's easier to get in and out of the town, out of the city with a van instead of a big tour bus.
Right. But then you would have to listen to Johnny like harangue you about Richard Nixon or Ronald Reagan, right?
I heard about Ronald Reagan so much you wouldn't believe it. In fact, sometimes I sound like him. Well, this is what I used to tease John. Ronald Reagan was the greatest. He was the greatest. And I go to him, well, there you go again. So,
All right.
And then I'd say, Nancy, just say no. So that was the thing with John. But look, we have a two-party system, and I've been to so many countries, and I'm grateful that we're able to have that choice.
Right. I saw that where you talked to my colleague Molly Eichel at the Philadelphia Daily News and about.
What's her name?
Her name, Molly. Her name was. I think you talked to her on the phone. But she talked about that you talked about the unifying power of farts in the van.
I knew that was going to be brought up.
Yeah,
Anyway, sometimes you're with your bandmates, family, business partners, and it's quiet in the van, and there's underlying tensions and animosities that are so trivial. So it's nice and quiet, and you want to make people laugh, so you make a fart, And sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. But I was the schmuck who did that, So, just to have the levity, you know what I mean?
Well, you come across in the book as like the sane guy trying to bring people together.
I wasn't that sane. But I tried. And, that's all I wanted to see was Johnny and Joey get along.
So tell me about what made the band great and what it was like to be in the seat on stage in those shows.
Well, it was the sound of the band, the sound that they created, which was very stripped down and all the sound of eighth notes, meaning, just playing downstrokes on your guitar, and on the drums, same thing. You follow each other, and that's what it was. I created a wall, because there were no spaces in between the notes, like a quarter note. So you have an eighth note, which is quicker.
And you had those 2.5-minute songs that never
short and sweet.
Right.
The problem is that, I guess everyone has their own musical choice, but at the time our competition was disco and stadium rock. Now in the stadium rock, you get an album and it's like 5-6 songs on it, because of self-indulgence. You know what I mean? And who can play the fastest triplet? Who could do the fastest triplet on a drum solo? Whatever. But the Ramones just basically wanted to go back to the early rock, like Little Richard, Chuck Berry, Elvis Presley, the Beatles, all that stuff. And those were 2.5 minute great songs with a great hook, chorus, verses, and that was the end, you know? So it's better to pack in 30 songs than, say, 12 songs in a set, you know?
Right. So many great songs. So many great songs.
Thanks
really.
to Dee Dee and Joey.
Yeah. So Dee Dee and Joey are the creative force in that regard.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. And so what did Johnny bring to the band? It was musically.
Oh, well, his style, his downstroke guitar style for an hour and 20 minutes on the stage. A technician can't even do that. You know, a real studied guitar player. I'd like to see the guy try to do that. He'd probably get tired after 10 minutes because it's continuous. There's no stopping. The Ramones were like a sprint. There was no how's the weather, how's your grandmother, you know. It was all straight ahead. You know?
Right. So the sad thing is that all the 4 original guys are gone.
Yeah, it sucks.
It's incredible.
Yeah,
It's incredibly sad, really.
Yeah, I had to live with that since Joey died, and then
Joey went in 2001.
Yeah, he wasn't even there for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You know, we had to have Green Day sing for us up there. You know, but you know, we were grateful for them to come up there and do their thing. You know,
Right, but your singer was not there.
right?
Yeah.
And then it was Dee Dee. Dee Dee died of an overdose. He was clean for 7 years. And then he stuck the needle in his arm, and I guess because he was so clean, that's what killed him. You know, your system flushes out after a while.
Right.
And
you
then,
yourself have been sober for
I'll get to
30
that,
years.
yeah. And then it was Johnny with prostate cancer. So 3, and then Tommy recently, who just passed away in a hospice. You know. So 3 Ramones were afflicted by cancer, 1 with an overdose. So you never get over that, you know, as a guy who's been their bandmates that close, you know.
Right.
So cancer is an insidious disease. It attacks anyone. Doesn't matter if you're Arnold Schwarzenegger or, you know, Jack LaLanne, the healthiest guy in the world. It just seeps in, takes over, you know.
Right. So you do to try to keep that. Like the legacy is in your hands in some ways. Do you take that seriously?
Oh, I enjoy playing the songs, but the legacy is the music, it's the videos, it's who the band influenced, how many bands the Ramones influenced. I'm just there playing the songs live, enjoying it because there's a whole new generation. Me and Johnny and Joey in '94 were in a Holiday Inn hotel room discussing our retirement in '96. Because you just don't do one last show. You got to go to every country to do your one last show. So that's what we had to do. So, you know, it ended in August.
It took a while.
In L.A. You know,
The Adios Amigos tour, that was, I think, right?
And that was it.
Right,
you know?
right. So, and then you also have you've got your radio show on
Sirius XM.
Right,
yeah.
Wednesday nights.
And Saturday,
Yeah. And so let's talk about the pasta sauce a little
Okay.
bit. Let's talk about that. I think we got some fans of the pasta sauce out here.
I don't particularly like the Wall Street Journal, but they voted it number 2 in there.
There
You know, whatever.
We beat the rest, put it to the test.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, the story with that is my grandfather worked at the Copacabana in New York. He was a chef there, and he used to cook for Jackie Gleason, Betty Davis, Humphrey Bogart, you know, the mobsters that owned the place. They trusted him, you know, because they knew he wouldn't poison them. And, you know, I used to watch him cook as a kid. When my parents took me over to their house on Sunday, Saturday nights, whatever. And the way he used the knife was just unbelievable. He never cut his fingers off, you know. But the pasta sauce, when I got kicked out of my house, the cheapest thing to make was spaghetti, and it lasted you for days, you know, and it wasn't the best ingredients. It was better than eating dog food, which I had to eat for a while.
That's also detailed in the book, as well as eating bugs at a different point.
Yeah. So that was that with that, and so it took 6 months to make, and first it was too watery, then it was too chunky, then it was too sweet, too salty. Then you got to walk away from it. You have to walk away from it. Then I came back, try it again, and it worked, and that's the result. And I'm proud to say that part of the proceeds goes to Autism Speaks.
And
So,
and why you were telling me like why you chose? Why did you choose that charity? Why is that important to you?
well, it affects the motor nerve. I play the drums, and when I see that a person wants to communicate and use his limbs properly, it kills me because I can. And I can just imagine how that person feels. Not in a million years can I, but you know they want to communicate, but they just can't. And they want to play the drums, they want to play the guitar, you know. So eventually, hopefully, there'll be a cure. You know.
Right. All right. So let's open it up now to questions.
Did you want to hear about my drinking?
Yeah. Go ahead. What about your drinking?
Okay. Here we go. Well, it was getting bad. I was called a periodic drinker, meaning you didn't drink every day, but when you did drink, you know, you got pretty whatever. So I was drinking a lot of wine and beer and martinis. So I had a liquor store downstairs from my home, and the guy would deliver. I mean, couldn't have been any easier. You know what I mean? You know, I didn't have to walk out with the bathrobe and slippers. Anyway, so they would come to the house, deliver the booze, and by the end of the day, I'd go to the Mud Club at CBGB's in Maxis, Kansas City, and come home fucked up, you know. But I never drank before I got high, never drank before I got into the studio play live. But what happened was one album, which I dislike a lot because of the drum sound, it's called Subterranean Jungle. Good songs, though, but I didn't like the drum sound. And I argued with the producer. I told him, look, this sounds like a drum machine. At the time in '82, a lot of bands, a lot of producers were using that drum machine sound. And it sounded to me like a bunch of paper bags, you know, and the cymbals he cut off, he didn't let them breathe. So I had a verbal confrontation with him, and, you know, it got to verbal blows, you know, fuck you, go to hell, all this shit. So I had my half pint of vodka in this garbage pail. You know, you stick your hand in it, one of those things with the flap, and you got to move your hand out quick or else you get bruised. Anyway, the fifth was in, the pint was in there, and me and Walter Lura were nipping on it from the Heartbreakers. He was the second guitar player. Besides Johnny Thunders, and you know, feeling good. And this is the first time I drank during the session. So Dee Dee comes into the bathroom, you know, Mister, I'll take anything. So you know, we go. He finds the bottle because I guess he knows where to hide things pretty well. He finds the bottle, takes it out, and he goes, "Look what Mark's doing." So he waved it around, and that was it. And then I just left the session. I didn't do Time Has Come Today. And another reason in the book, I discuss why I wouldn't play on that song. But then Joey called and he said, look, you know, we like it, but you got to go away. You got to get help. And he was right. That was the best phone call I ever got because I could have killed somebody or somebody could have killed me. You know, I could have, who the hell knows, you know what I mean?
Right. You drove your car through a storefront window.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
It was a hot day.
All right. Let's take some questions. Where are we doing that? Just here, I guess?
Were the Ramones one of those bands that loved Fleetwood Mac's Tusk?
Who's that? What's that?
Wanted to know if the Ramones loved Fleetwood Mac's Tusk album.
We despise them. I don't like to use the word hate, but maybe it fits in that description. You know, I don't hate anybody, but that kind of music is what we were up against, and why the DJs wouldn't play us on the radio, because it was a proven formula, and they would play bands like that all the time. So there you go.
Let's see. Over here? Yeah.
What do you want to know?
Describe the other personality.
Tommy was a very smart guy when it came to production. He never played the drums, and he did those 3 great albums and a live album from England. And he just, after 3.5 years, he didn't want to tour anymore, and he wanted to be behind the other side of the glass. So he decided to produce, and he got into other forms of music too, bluegrass music and stuff. So I'm always grateful that he advised them to get me in the groove, you know. So Tommy was a very smart guy.
Here's a follow-up, Mark. Please use the influence of. Wait for the mic. Sorry. What's your influence of all the drummers in your life? How do you follow somebody like Tommy, who was a self-taught drummer?
Well, what I did was, when they gave me the live set, I just played along with what he was doing, just 8th notes, and, you know, 1 and the 2, 1, 1, 2, and 1, 2, and the bass drum. And I always used to watch Ringo, the Beatles. Hello, testing. He always used his fingers and wrist when he played, like this. Slows you, you know, all that stuff. So I picked that up from Ringo and jazz drummers, because when I used to watch the jazz drummers, they hardly used their arms. They just used their wrist and fingers. You know, so I incorporated that stuff, and of course what Tommy was doing.
Let's see. Somebody towards the back. Way back there. Is there a hand up way back there?
I like the scene that you described with Dee Dee in Berlin with the wall. It was sort of moving when the hole was there and you wished that he was there, speaking of Dee Dee. But I was wondering about the phone that you had, that you mentioned in the office at the end when he had left the band, like the hotline for him to call in.
Oh, when he was getting fucked up?
Yeah, you had a phone for him to call in.
Well, if he ever, see, the thing is, when you get straight, whatever, you know, and you see somebody who's fucking his life up, you say to the person, look, if you ever want to pick up, give me a call first. Let's talk it over. You know, it's easier said than done, you know what I mean? But at least you're talking to the person. Maybe one word can stop them from picking up or whatever, you know? So I told that to Dee Dee. Anytime, you know, he had any urge to do anything, to call me. So that's what that meant in the book.
Over there, right there. Oh, right. The girl behind there after him. Okay. No, you can go.
Could you tell us about Robert Quine and your time with the Voidoids?
Excellent question.
Great guitar player. One of the greatest guitar players I ever played with, besides Johnny Ramone and whatever. But he was definitely a very technical player with that Stratocaster and the whammy bar. You know, he really knew how to use it. And he was into Miles Davis, John Coltrane, again, Dave Brubeck, all these jazz players. So he incorporated that into his style, and that's what you got, Bob Quine. Unfortunately, he passed away too, you know. It's just, I don't know what it is. Maybe he was just hanging out in CBGBs, you know. But
you talked too about him seeming very mature, kind of.
Very mature. Well, at one point. Well, there's a story in the book. Me and Joe Strummer. Bob was about 11, 12 years older than we was. So me and Joe must have been about 22, 23, 24 on there in England. So one day we're walking around the hotel. We had We had a bunch of Newcastle Browns. That's an English beer. It's very good, in fact. Anyway, we're walking around the hotel rooms, and Bob's door is a little open. So we were worried, you know. Why is his door open? And you know, we walk in, and he's getting a blowjob, you know. So, I mean, it was funny. It was funny because we all thought he was the quiet, shy, older guy. But here he is, and it was this woman with a mohawk, this punk rocker, giving him the blowjob, and she started throwing shit at us and everything, and, you know, we got the hell out of there, you know. You know, we didn't know what the hell was going to happen, but, you know, that was Bob Quine.
I was going to say there's not that much sexual debauchery in the book, but there is that scene.
No. Girls thought we were very unusual people, you know. But we any groupies that were there, I don't like the term groupie. I think it's condescending. We had friends, and we hung out with them. We discussed music. We discussed movies. And every time we would go back to that particular city or country, they would be there again. You know, so we never believed in using women as sex objects.
Right. Hear, hear. Hear, hear.
Did you like the movie Rock and Roll High School?
Yeah, well, yeah, I did, but I only had one line in it, and I was disappointed I didn't win the Oscar. But anyway. Yeah, I loved Rock and Roll High School because it was cheap to make, and that was the charm of it. And the acting, the people in the movie were great, and you learned how to make a movie. You sit around all day, your part comes up, it's 5 minutes, and that's it. My one line was, like in The Simpsons, I had one line. My line was, the music teacher, Mr. McGree, said a joke. Nobody really reacted. So I gave him a little punch on the arm, and I said, that was a good one, Mr. McGree. So the movie took 6 weeks to make. That's my line. But it is a charming movie, and it still holds up, and I was very happy to be in that.
Excellent line reading, though, I have to say.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's see, back there a little in the middle. Yeah, sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Here you go.
Are you in touch? Oh, sorry.
Use the mic. I can hear you.
Yeah, I'm from Queens Village. I don't need a mic.
Oh.
It's good to see you. It's been about 35 years, Marky.
Okay.
I'm from Queens Village, so we hung out with Arturo and Larry Valley and all the guys, Stephen Mudd. A lot of them aren't with us anymore, as you said. But I was wondering if you wanted to share the story with the audience about what happened in Los Angeles and the Chinese food. Louis Basso put me up to this, by the way.
Los Angeles with the Chinese food.
Yeah, apparently you, Larry, and Louis were at a Chinese restaurant, and Larry had a huge plate of Chinese food, and before he got the fork to the plate, you said, are you going to eat that? And you took it away from him and ate the whole plate.
That's me. Yeah. I got a better one. I really don't remember that, but I have a better one. Me and Joey went to eat sushi before we did a show. And obviously the sushi wasn't too good because they can hide the taste with certain, ingredients, the wasabi mustard or whatever. So we're doing a show, and I felt a little sick playing the drums, and I'm starting to burp. Next thing I know, I throw up on the snare drum while I'm playing. And at that time, it was sunglasses, because me and Joey had prescription sunglasses. So the throw-up's going on my face, on my glasses. My roadie's trying to wipe it off while I'm playing. He's going like this. And this is through a 3-minute song. It was rock and roll radio, 3.5 minutes. So he cleaned up the snare drum after the song. My glasses were still dirty, and we had to do the whole set like that. So that's my foray into Japanese food.
All right. here in the baseball cap here.
Uh, 22 years, and there was never one Ramones ballad or one slow song. Was that by design?
Do you listen to all the albums?
It slows down a little bit here and there.
There's ballads, there's slow songs.
So I missed something?
Yes.
I got to say that I'm glad that there's never been, through the longevity of the Ramones, there's never been like a Ramones with the London Symphonic Orchestra or the Ramones' favorite love songs.
Never say never. Because they have an album, it's elevator music, of Ramones songs. Who knew?
Sure.
Hey.
Is there any news about the Scorsese movie? About the Scorsese
movie.
Oh, well,
Scorsese movie.
Monster, this is what, this came about around 5 years ago, too. So when I see it, when I see the contract, when I see the whole business situation going on, then we'll know for sure.
But it's not a documentary. It's allegedly a.
No, I think it is a documentary, but there's so many documentaries out there already.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? But when you make a movie about a band, to me, except for like A Hard Day's Night or whatever, for some reason it never turns out right. Like the Runaways movie and the CBGB movie. Again, you're dealing with Martin Scorsese, so I guess he
knows what he's doing.
He knows what he's doing.
Look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we'll see. It would be great, and if it was done great, that would be wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Who would play Marky?
I have no idea. I don't think of that. You know what I mean?
I wanted to ask you one other thing. You talked about when you took the name Marky, that there could have been other names that you might have taken, and one of them might have been Rocky.
There was Rocky. Well,
so why didn't you take Rocky?
Problem was Rocky was big at the time. Moved Sylvester Stallone, so we couldn't do that. Then there was Timmy, a little too timid. Then there was Freddie, not you know what I mean. So there used to be a cereal called Mapo. It was a hot morning cereal like Wheatena and Farina that was big in the early 60s. So my grandmother used to call me Marky because of that fucking cereal. So eventually, Marky, go clean the stairs. Marky, go to the store for your grandfather. He wants coffee, ice cream. You know what I mean? So the next thing, we're all sitting around. So I remember this clothes store across the street from the school that I really didn't go to that often. It was called Marcy's. It was Marcys. So I remembered that, and then I said, okay, let's just call it Marky, after the Marky Mapo cereal character. Dropped the C, put a KY there, and that was it, Marky.
There you go. One more, right here.
Hey.
Yeah.
Hello.
We're from the same neighborhood in Brooklyn. I had seen Dust when I was a kid and used to hang out in my building.
Where'd you see him?
Down Ocean Avenue, somewhere.
In the park, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, great, the band show.
You used to come over. You were friends with my neighbor right above me on Ocean Avenue, basically.
Us who, Steven?
Don't.
The guy that gave me the dog food to eat, right?
No, the guy that he died last year. He lived right off of Kings Highway.
Oh, Richie Hirsch.
There you go.
Yeah, great guy.
He was my neighbor.
He was a great guy, Richie.
So anyway, I've been, watching and listening to you since '71, and you seem like you've been real loyal to the people that you've been, that you've done business with throughout your career. Specifically, Phil Spector.
Yeah.
You were mentioning drum sounds earlier, so I'm wondering if you were pleased with the work that he had done, or.
Well, when the album did come out, it took 5.5 months. It was an experiment. A lot of punk purists hated it because of the horns, the strings, the keyboards, and what have you. I mean, Phil threw everything in there, But now, as I look back, it was our biggest selling album at the time. But it was an experiment, the Wall of Sound, the Ramones and Phil. And you had good songs on there, Rock and Roll High School, Rock and Roll Radio, Chinese Rock, Stanley Says, all these really good songs. But again, you know, they already did their 3-chord albums, which were great. You have to change a little. You do. You keep your own sound, but you have to add something so you don't get burnt out or tagged repetitious. So that's why we had Phil on board as a producer. But I appreciate it a lot more now.
You were with him during the trial.
Yeah.
You were like the only one that worked that stood by.
Yeah. We were at the trial in California, Los Angeles. I was so nervous I went the wrong way in the highway on oncoming traffic. And I wasn't even drinking. So, you know, I get there, and there he is with his second wife, Rochelle. And, you know, the evidence was so slow. It was just nothing, a little blot of blood on his sport jacket. You know, that was it. So to this day, everyone, you know, can believe what they want. I just think that they were out to get him. 2 reasons. Because, one, they didn't get O.J., and, you know, I don't know if he's guilty or innocent, and I don't care. They didn't get Robert Blake, who was in the television series Baretta. And I think at that moment, the L.A. justice system was in question. So they had to get somebody, so they got Phil. You know, it's just my opinion, you know.
All right.
Yeah, because I believed he was innocent.
One more. I thought this little girl.
Hello, little girl. Hi. I like your shirt.
Thank you. Do you have any advice for, like, drummers who are going to become drummers when they get older?
Don't smoke cigarettes. I never smoked cigarettes. I was repulsed by the smell, and it definitely affects your lung capacity. Exercise a lot and play at least 3-4 times a week. And try, it's easy to say, but to develop your own style out of the influences that you like, you know. Try to get along with other band members that like the same music you do. Makes things a lot easier, you know. And try to learn from different genres of music: jazz, blues, punk, you know, rock, the early rock stuff, and then just put your icing on the cake, you know. Then you have your own style.
All right, beautiful, excellent advice from Marky Ramone. Marky Ramone, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right, I guess we're going to go upstairs, sign some books, do all that.